Okay, I'm back with another video about Kouri Richins' trial. I think this is 13. I'm losing track, but I'll put the right number up at the top. Anyway, I want to talk about the walk the dog letter because this was introduced into court. O'Driscoll brought this in. And there's some interesting things here. I personally think that this is pretty damning, but I think that there are people that can read this and there's parts of it that are kind of new to us. So let's go through that. The main gist of this is it starts off, and this is why the police thought this was kind of an instruction manual to her mom and her brother, because the first line says, you know, Skye told me, Skye was her former attorney. So she starts off by saying, and I'm paraphrasing all of this, but she basically says, my attorney told me the only way out of this is that we convince the jury that Eric used to go to Mexico to get fentanyl. Like that he was a drug user and that he went to Mexico and he got fentanyl and he would bring it back. So then she starts to kind of build that story. Please go look at this. Please go talk to this. And you could tell them this and tell them this and tell them this. Well, we don't know if what she's providing to her brother and her mother is real information or if this is her tampering and saying, go tell them this. Like it's a made up story and she's setting this story in their heads of what she wants them to say. He said in the letter that Eric used to bring fentanyl. He would go to the Mexico ranch / cartel house, right? Now he's hanging out with the cartel, like such a bad dude, this guy. So she says he would bring fentanyl into the United States for his own use, right? For his own use and for, I guess, give it to some of the guys at work or whatever. So, by the way, if Eric was selling fentanyl, if he was going to Mexico and bringing back fentanyl, he'd been way richer than he was. Anyway, and if he was taking it every day, he would probably have a very hard time functioning. There would have been, I think there would have been other evidence, right? There would have been other evidence along the way. There would have been other deterioration to his body, to his tissues, to everything else that would have shown he was a regular fentanyl user. Addicts show other signs of drug usage. Anyway, in the Walk the Dog letter, she's like, well, get with Ronnie. And Ronnie was telling stories about how he kept the fentanyl in an allergy medicine container in his car. So I wouldn't know. I wouldn't see it. They kept it secret from me. So what's the story, Kouri? Did they keep it secret from you? They were secretly bringing it back because he knew you'd get angry. And so he didn't tell you. So it was a secret, but you knew he kept it in an allergy medicine container in his car. Like, which is it? Was it a total secret to you? Or did you know it and he just kept it hidden from you? That tangles me up a little bit. And then they found at the scene, they found this notebook. And I think they're kind of referring it to as a journal, which a lot of people do. A lot of people, when they've gone through a situation or even just like everyday like emotions, they sit down and they journal. It makes them feel better. And so I feel like that's how this was supposed to be introduced, that Eric had just died and she was jotting down and trying to keep her head about what her emotions and how she felt about the situation. Now, everybody handles grief differently. Everybody handles loss differently. But the things that she's saying in there, I don't feel like this is a journal. I don't feel like this is any attempt to journal or diary. This is her testimony. Like if you read it, she's like, and at 9:15, I went into the other room and I could hear Eric screaming on the phone. At 9:45, I came back in. Like it reads like testimony, which I find is really, really odd. Why would you take the time to write down your entire version of the story instead of just telling it to police? It's almost like she needed a script. Anyway, there's something in there where she said it was Eric's suggestion to go have a congratulations drink. Put it in direct quotes. Eric said, let's go have a celebratory drink. Really? I've never in my life known anybody that says, let's go have a celebratory drink. No, people are like, dude, we need a shot. Let's go. Let's go have some mules. And they run in the kitchen and they start making drinks, right? I've never known anybody that speaks like that, but that is how she put that in quotes, that it was Eric who suggested they go have the celebratory drink. And I know I've said this 100 times, but I just need to say it again. They did the autopsy and they ran the toxicology reports on Eric. There was a very little amount of ethanol, which means the amount of alcohol that was in his bloodstream was less than one alcoholic beverage. Basically, that's essentially the amount that he took was like a shot, right? It was a very, very little amount. He didn't even drink a full alcoholic beverage. There was no THC in his system, none. And for anybody saying, well, maybe he took something else and it was laced with fentanyl, then my question is, where is that something else? Because there was no other drug. If he'd have taken hydrocodone that was accidentally laced, if he'd taken Oxycontin that was accidentally laced, you would have found hydrocodone or Oxycontin in his system. There was nothing else found in his system but straight fentanyl. The only other thing found in his system, and this is a very trace amount, but the only other thing was quetiapine, which is to treat schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, right, as an add-on treatment for major depressive order. This was a prescription that Kouri was on. So why was Kouri's medication in his system? So it was this and fentanyl that were found in his system. And to think, well, he mixed that with alcohol, he really didn't. There was so little alcohol found in his system that that was not a contributing factor. What killed Eric was a lethal dose of fentanyl. That's it. They don't have to prove that Kouri gave it to him. Because I just covered the Brian Walsh case and they never ever proved that he murdered his wife. They had no cause of death for his wife. He just said, well, we woke up and she was unresponsive. And I tried to give her CPR and I called 911 and she was unresponsive. But his other actions surrounding her death all led to the idea that he probably did it, and a jury found him guilty. So I'm just telling you that there doesn't need to be that physical evidence connection that she actually gave it to him. There has to be evidence that she had motive and that she had ability and that she could get it and that he suddenly had it in his system. So that should be enough to convince a jury, but let's see. You never know with juries, and we have yet to hear the defense's case. So here we go. We're going to keep coming back for more.